Hey guys, Spike from Silly Goose Robotics here in the worst video quality you may have ever seen. Today I'm going to be discussing two designs for frictionless flywheel flipper. Now, for those who don't know, flywheel flipper is pretty simple. It's just a flipper robot, but they use a flywheel to store energy instead of compressed air or anything else of the sort. Now, these kind of robots, they've been a little bit of an enigma in the community because everyone always tries to go for the same approach of you have a flywheel spinning and it has to be this big mass and you have to get the energy off of it. And I think that limited way of thinking is why everyone tries to put friction into the system. They try to get some pad to go into it, and it's such a bad method. It's not that it hasn't been executed properly, but it's not the best method you could do because you lose so much energy to just heat and sound. The best example is Blip from Seems Reasonable Robotics. Now, they have a really cool system. They have a multi-stage system, in fact, or if you can call it a multi-stage system. You have their flywheel, turns on, you have a clutch that engages it. The clutch is attached to like a very high-powered, like ski boat, something type of cord, very high tensile strength. That spins, kind of gives it time to spin up while it's connecting the two things. It's a very good design. However, it uses so much power to get the friction on there. You can't have that. No, none of that. This video is going to be showing you my two designs to get around that. And one's better than the other, I will say, but they're both their own things and they both have room for improvement. So let me show you them. And no fancy cuts. I'm just going to flip the camera around. I'm going to try to flip. Okay guys, I'm not intelligent enough to flip the camera around, so I'm just going to be showing you on here. So excuse the mess, there was a lot of trial and error. So first I'll show you the one I've actually implemented into a bot. And this one uses centrifugal force in order to power the thing. So again, this is very messy, I'm so sorry. But you have this orange thing. Let me color this outer shell so it's less confusing here. So you have this whole orange thing. These rods here, this is the big axle, and it spins around real fast, like 3,000, 5,000 RPM. And these little white things here, those are sliders, and they're actually locked in right now. And the sliders are going to be connected either by a string or by just a simple, there's a hinge here and a hinge here, and there's just a link attaching them. Either way works. You get a little more compact if you have a string and then the bearing, and it comes out here. Essentially, you spin it up real fast, and it real fast, and you keep going. And eventually, when you're ready to flip, all you do is you move this little part up. You move this part up, like so. Boop, 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 boop. That boy's moved up. Now, what you have is you have these two weights moving at extraordinary speeds. They're not going to stay there. They are going to very violently go in this direction, right? Very quickly, very violently. And here's the thing. This is attached to this via a linkage. As this is going out, what it does is it actually pulls this down. They go at the same speed. Do you see where I'm going with this? This is what is attached to your flipper. So that's really all you need. Now, for this little design right here, I actually have more of a system. It actually would pull on a string that would go to these pulleys right here, which are connected to these kind of Nautilus gears. And that's that. It starts out with a strong mechanical advantage and ends up with a lot of speed. So then the speed goes to these pulleys. So it goes from down here to that one back there, and that one's connected to this one, and then this one has its own string that goes to this one, which goes down and lifts up this entire arm. So it's a little bit of a bulky setup for sure, but I've done some calculations, and honestly, God, I think you could make a 30-pound version of this, which could genuinely send another bot like 50 to 100 feet in the air. I don't know. People might have to fact check me on this. I'm a little bit of a lazy calculator. But let's get on to the second one. Wait a minute. No, I forgot. I have a model. 1 second. I gotta say, I'm a big fan of Besiege. Not because I, enjoy building on it, but I enjoy like physics modeling on it. So earlier I made this, and this is the example. So here's your opponent bot right there. Here's your kind of flywheel, where the flywheel is the whole thing. The slider bits, that's the slider. And if you see, I will turn it on. Oh Lord, gotta turn it on indestructible mode. 1 second. Okay, I'll turn it on. Goes vroom, bam. I'll put it in slow mo because it's kind of, Besiege has goofy, very compliant connections. So I speed it up, it spins, and then simply you just release those weights at the bottom. That forces everything up, and that's how that version of the flywheel flipper works. It's very effective. It's just a little space consuming, but you can fit this into a lot of things. So let's move on to the next one. All right, so this next one I think is a little bit better and has much more potential because I worked on that idea all day. This is the one I've been working on for the past couple minutes, and I think it's pretty great. So how it works is you have this loop right here, right? And here is this cylinder. Now, this whole thing would be tall because the cylinder has to be pretty heavy. We'll make it black. So the cylinder kind of rests here, like in this little Pac-Man thing. It holds it right here. And what it does is this whole thing, including the weight, starts to spin around very, very rapidly, very quickly. Now, if you'll notice, there's kind of a red bit here, and this keeps the track shape. But what happens is you simply unlatch this, and this weight, of course, as you know, anything rotating goes, for those who don't know, anything you see that is rotating does not want to rotate. It desperately does not want to rotate. It is pure physics and material science keeping it from rotating, but it always just wants to go in one straight vector. So what it wants to do when it gets here is it wants to go, when it wants to break through that like a fucking railgun, but it can. But once you unlatch this thing, and you would unlatch it around right around here-ish, right? It just has to slide out. Then the weight of this thing traveling around is going to be enough to just absolutely slam this out of the way. So this little gray bit here, oh god, my UI's messed up. 1 second. There we go. So this gray bit here is a hinge, and it's what that red thing is hinged on. So the weight of this of the little black cylinder going into it is going to force it open, and the cylinder is going to go right back down this channel. Well, the force we get from that, pushing that, can simply just be utilized, and that itself pushes out a piston, which again, all you need to do to make a flipper, you either need something to retract or extend. Because if you extend, then you just extend the front, and if you retract, then you just retract the back behind the hinge. Pretty simple stuff, and this has a lot of potential, and here's why it does, but it might be a little complicated. The problem with a design like this, and it can kind of be fixed in the same way the other one is, but it's kind of impractical. Once these weights here have come all the way out, you're not getting them back in. The amount of force that's keeping them out was enough to flip another bot multiple feet up in the arena. Unless you're just going to magically generate that amount of force to bring them back, you're going to have to slow down the entire flywheel to do that. Now, that's not terribly practical to do. It's not a great idea. Where this one comes into play is you see how there's this gap in the center. You need to think about this like the eye of a tornado. Have you ever heard if you stand in the eye of a tornado, it never moves? So when this is standing in the middle, it can rotate around, but this can just stay there. I mean, it doesn't need to be rotating to fit. And just the slightest nudge into it and go boop, and immediately it'll grab it and it'll go, throw it out to the side. So say you had a version of this where you were able to extract the pin or the little cylinder after it goes into the channel. You can load it back in, and you never have to slow this down. Now, I think slowing this down isn't too big of an inconvenience because you can actually make this light. And this goes to my next point of comparing the two. This can be very light. It just has to rotate this thing. It can be made of virtually anything. However, there's another flaw. Because there's a little bit of something you got to think about with this design. And that's that you would think, oh, this big, huge flywheel, it's spinning, it's so powerful. Well, that's not where your power comes from, though. Your power comes from these weights moving out. That's your power. you just need enough weight and power in this thing so that these don't slow down while they do it. Because as they move out, they suck the energy out of this. So you kind of think of this as dead weight. This is weight that your sliders suck out of and transfer to the rest of your robot. But here's the thing. If your sliders aren't heavy enough, then they're just not going to be under enough force to completely move the entire system. Because this moving out pulls the entire system. There's a lot of resistance to it doing that. That takes a lot of resistance, especially when there's a bot on the other side of your flipper. If it's not heavy enough, it's not going to work. But if this isn't heavy enough, this whole wheel, then it's not going to be able to give this the adequate power it needs. So you're kind of working with slight losses here, I think. I think that's a big flaw of that design that this one definitely addresses. You fool. If you were hoping that to be the end of the video so you would no longer have to see my putrid malformed face, you were very wrong. And that's because I did not explain the materials you need to do this, which is probably a helpful thing to do, because you don't just generate a motherfucking shit ton of force and don't suffer the wrath of your own force. Now, for something like this, fortunately, you don't need anything that's really malleable. All you need is tensile strength. All right? So, like basic metals like steel will work. You know, titanium is fantastic. If you're not dealing with too much kinetic energy, a lot of the things can just straight up be replaced with string. There's extremely high tensile strength string. You get there. String is not even a good word for it. It's more like cord. They use them in sailboats for the sails. Extremely strong. Very impressive. So keep in mind, if you are on a budget, you're not going to get the power that you could get out of this. You really need to go for better materials. But don't let that dissuade you. There's always time for making prototypes. Anyways, good luck to you. Yeah, so that's the idea behind the two flywheel flippers. I hope you find them of use. Feel free to absolutely use them. I don't care about credit. My credit is the upload date of the video, buddy. So I'm actually the inefficient one. I plan on making that one. I don't know if I got it in the frame. I plan on making that one. I don't plan particularly on making the better version, just because it's a little more complicated. Getting the pin back. I didn't even sure how to get the pin. 1 second. Look, getting the pin back is actually pretty simple. It's in the channel, right? 1 second. It's in the channel. By now, the red thing's actually up here. You just forcibly close the red thing, whether you want to do an electric solenoid or something, and you just push it in here. This thing is going to slow down until it can grab onto that and put it back in the system. And that's really all it takes. Pretty simple mechanism. I think it's going to do fantastic. All the simulations I've tested in, aka one simulation, has done flawlessly. So if you plan on using it, comment down. Send a link to a video where you make it, or even make your own version in 3D model software. I'd love to see it. All right. I'm sending you out, but it's a supercharged sending you out. Ah! I fucking missed. Okay, goodbye. I'm ending. Ah! Ah! Letty! Letty! Are you trapped in there? Letty! Letty! Ah! There you are. I was so worried about you. I thought you got lost. I love you so much.